Welcome to the Immigrant in Law channel. If you are planning to move to Europe or just moved and want to buy real estate, but do not know where to start, this video is for you. Today we'll go through the important steps, where to look, how to choose a reliable option, and what pitfalls you may encounter along the way. There will be a lot of useful tips, so make sure to watch until the end. If you are sure that you plan to live in Europe for a long time or want to invest in real estate, buying can be a profitable solution. In some countries, owning real estate simplifies the process of obtaining residence permit and citizenship. Who's the purchase for? Those who have already obtained a long-term residence permit or are planning to immigrate through investment. Business owners who want to establish themselves in the country. Those who want to avoid the risks associated with increasing rents. Investors considering the purchase of real estate for rent. Specifics of buying real estate in Europe. Purchase tax varies from 2% in Cyprus to 10 to 15% in France, Spain, and Portugal, depending on the country. In some countries, for example, in Switzerland, the purchase of housing for foreigners is limited. When applying for a mortgage, banks may require a down payment of 30 to 40% if you do not have citizenship or residence permit. Important. In some countries, the purchase of real estate from 250,000 to 500,000 euros gives the opportunity to get a golden visa, residence permit for investors. In some countries, having your own real estate gives you the right to obtain a residence permit, and in others, helps to prove financial solvency. However, buying a home in Europe is a complex process with legal and financial nuances. Let's understand how to approach this issue correctly. Depending on the country and your goals, several search blocks can be considered, popular online platforms. Let's check the most reliable websites for real estate search. Germany, Immowelt, Immobilien Scout 24. France, SeLoger, Leboncoin. Spain, Italy, Portugal, Idealista, Fotocasa. Netherlands, Belgium, Pararius Funda. Common European platforms, Kiero, Greenacres. Real estate agencies. Working with an agent is especially important if you are not well versed in the local market or do not speak the language. The agent will help you to choose the options, check the legal purity of the transaction, and organize the paperwork. However, you should take into account the fees, which can reach 3 to 5% of the value of the property. Auctions and bank real estate. Some countries, such as Spain and Portugal, offer interesting real estate options at auctions. Bank repossessed property are properties confiscated for debt that are sold at reduced prices. Each country in Europe has its own rules for the purchase of real estate by foreigners. However, the standard package of documents looks like this: travel passport, foreigner identification number, proof of source of income, it can be tax return, bank statements, local bank account is mandatory in many countries. The process may vary slightly from country to country, but generally consists of several steps. Selecting a property and checking the documents. Before buying, it is important to make sure that the property has no debts or restrictions. In Europe, many transactions are accompanied by a notary who checks the legal purity of the property. Signing a preliminary contract. In most countries, a preliminary agreement is signed, which specifies the terms of the deal and the amount of the deposit, usually 5 to 10%. Payment of taxes and fees. Besides the value of the property, the buyer needs to take into account additional costs. Purchase tax, that can be 2 to 15%, depending on the country. Legal and notary services, usually 1 to 2%. Registration fees. The final part, signing the sale and purchase agreement at the notary and registration of housing for the new owner. Is it possible to get a mortgage in Europe? Yes, but the conditions depend on your status. If you have a residence permit or permanent residence permit, it is much easier to get a mortgage. Banks consider you as a local borrower. If you are a citizen of an EU country, the conditions are as convenient as possible. The mortgage rate can be from 2 to 3%. If you are a foreigner without status in the country, banks usually require a larger down payment, from 30 to 40% of the cost of housing, and may set a higher interest rate. Important. Before applying for a mortgage, be sure to clarify what documents will be required and what additional costs you will incur. Mistakes worth avoiding. Buying without checking documents. There may be housing debts or restrictions. Choosing a home based on photos only. Always inspect in person or through a trusted person. Ignoring taxes and fees. Sometimes additional costs can reach 15 to 20% of the property value. Buying in a tourist area without researching demand. In some countries, such as France, rental rates are regulated, and it can be more difficult to rent out a home than it seems. Let's break down popular countries in terms of real estate buying prospects and key nuances for immigrants. If you plan not only to live in Europe, but also to invest in real estate, it is worth considering the tax system, the prospects for price growth, and the possibility of obtaining a residence permit. Spain, affordable prices and investor programs. Pros: quite low prices compared to France and Germany. Possibility to get a residence permit when buying housing from 500,000 euros. High demand for rent, You can rent housing to tourists. Cons. In tourist areas, the authorities may impose restrictions on short-term rentals. High tax on the purchase of real estate, about 10%. Portugal, one of the best places for investors. Pros. Golden Visa Program. Residence permit for the purchase of real estate from 280,000 euros. Affordable prices in small towns. High demand for rentals due to popularity among digital nomads and immigrants. Cons. Prices rise very quickly in Lisbon and Porto. There is a tax on rental income. France, a reliable but expensive market. Pros. High liquidity, housing is easy to sell in the future. Mortgages are available even for foreigners. Cons. High taxes when buying and owning. In Paris, expensive real estate and severe restrictions on rent. Germany, favorable for long-term investment. Pros. High market stability, low risk of price collapse. Possibility to rent out housing, the demand is always high. Cons. Very strict laws for landlords. It is not easy to kick out a disruptive tenant. Not all banks are willing to grant mortgages to foreigners without residence permit. Greece, affordable prices. Pros. The cheapest real estate among EU countries. High tourist demand, you can rent out housing. Cons. Not always transparent transactions. Better to work through trusted agents. Slow bureaucracy in the paperwork. We have dealt with the main nuances of buying real estate in Europe. But what if the whole process could be simplified? Take a mortgage on the best terms. Do not depend on visas and restrictions for foreigners. This is possible if you become an EU citizen. There is one very simple way: to apply for Slovenian citizenship by repatriation. As soon as you have a Slovenian passport in your hands, the real estate market of the whole Europe opens up in front of you. The restrictions that apply to foreigners no longer matter. In Spain, France, Austria, anywhere, you can buy housing on an equal footing with locals, and in some countries even take advantage of favorable mortgages. After all, banks in Europe are much more willing to work with EU citizens. This reduces rates, simplifies the registration, and sometimes even increases the amount of the loan. And to make the process of citizenship registration quick and without unnecessary complications, it is worth trusting a team of lawyers, Immigrant in Law. The specialists of the company know all the nuances of repatriation, will help to collect documents, and bring the process to the end. So, if the dream of a home in Europe seems far away to you, you should just take the first step, to apply for Slovenian citizenship. The rest will become much easier. Make an appointment for a free consultation with our immigration specialist right now. Purchase of real estate in Europe is not only a way to improve the quality of life, but also a profitable long-term investment. However, the process of buying a home requires a careful approach, from the choice of country and type of property to the paperwork and tax calculations. It is important to take into account legal nuances, tax rates, and possible additional costs to avoid unpleasant surprises. If you want to simplify the process as much as possible, get access to favorable mortgage programs, and buy real estate without restrictions, Slovenian citizenship by repatriation can be a great solution. It opens the door to the European housing market and gives you more opportunities for living and investing. And to make the citizenship process quick and easy, contact Immigrant in Law lawyers. The company's specialists will help you at all stages, from collecting documents to obtaining a passport. Don't put your dream on hold. Sign up for a free consultation and find out how to get Slovenian citizenship and buy real estate in Europe on favorable terms. Support the channel with a like, subscribe not to miss useful videos about immigration and life in Europe. Discover the world of opportunities with Immigrant in Law.